Hello and welcome to the second episode of Sports Weekly. I'm Dylan Staggy.
I'm Jason Gandhi.
And we are back here for some more sports. So It is Thanksgiving season, a lot of football going on. And speaking of football, some important college football, a pretty uneventful last weekend going on, but a big rivalry weekend this weekend, Jason.
Yeah, it's definitely a big weekend. A lot of team seasons are either going to skyrocket up or go plummeting down. So lots of change expected this weekend, especially with the Alabama-Auburn game. I think the one that most people are excited for. It should be a good week in college football.
Yeah, so let's talk about our top four for the college football playoff going into this weekend. Right now, who's your top four, Jason?
I think the obvious number one is still Alabama, yet to lose. They're my number one. At number two, I still like Clemson. I said this on the last one. I think Clemson's the best team in football. Kelly Bryant, a phenomenal quarterback, and I think Clemson is the best defense. So that's why I have them at number two. Number three, I like Oklahoma. With Baker Mayfield as quarterback, they've got the best quarterback in college football, and I like them just slightly over number four, Miami, who struggled with Virginia this week, but was able to come out on top 44-28. So, yeah, that's my top four: Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Miami, and my first two out will be Wisconsin and Auburn.
All right, I don't like Clemson as much as you. I also have Alabama at number one, though. Oklahoma at number two, Miami undefeated at number three. Did struggle last weekend against Virginia, and then Clemson at number four. They do have the worst loss, but also have some impressive wins. Really just that Miami and Clemson is going to come down to the ACC championship.
Why do you give the nod to Miami over Clemson as of right now?
I think just because Miami's undefeated and have a couple of impressive victories. They pounded Notre Dame, and really I think they're probably about even right now. I'd give the slight edge to Miami, but really, it's just going to come down to the ACC championship either way.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Only thing I say is just I have more belief in Clemson. That's why I like them at 2, Oklahoma 3, Miami 4. You have Oklahoma 2, Miami 3, Clemson 4.
All right, let's get into some picks for this weekend, though. Michigan and Ohio State, the big rivalry at noon on Saturday. This one is at Michigan. Who do you like?
For me, it's not a close one. I'm taking Ohio State. Michigan is yet to have a win over a team with a winning record. I like Ohio State. I don't think it's close. And for any Michigan fans watching, might not want to watch the game this week. It might be rough.
Yeah, I also like Ohio State. They've been on a roll lately. That one slip up against Iowa, I think they've gone past that. And if they beat Michigan pretty soundly, along with a win in the Big Ten championship, Ohio State could be right back in the playoff race.
Oh, for sure. Only 2 losses to Oklahoma and Iowa. I think Ohio State is definitely not out of it.
All right. Next game, Alabama and Auburn, the Iron Bowl. It is at Auburn. Alabama ranked number 1, Auburn ranked number 6. Who do you like in this one, Jason?
I'm taking the Crimson Tide. Roll Tide this weekend. I think Jalen Hurts is just too good, and I don't know. I just think that defense is going to shut down Jarrett Stidham. I wasn't a big fan of him at Baylor. I don't think they've got enough. Alabama, I really don't think it's going to be close. I'll take Alabama 21-13.
Not close, you said. Wow.
I just think that defense is really going to stifle him. I mean, Jarrett Stidham struggled in the Big 12 at Baylor when he had injury problems, but then when he's on the field, it's not like he was some stud, and that was with no defense. Alabama has the best defense to most people, first or second best defense in college football. I don't believe in Jarrett Stidham, and that's my reason for taking Bama.
I'm going to go with Auburn in this one. We saw how good Auburn played a couple of weeks ago against Georgia at home, who was ranked number 1 at the time. I think Alabama has a tough time. They really haven't played a lot of tough competition. And when they did against Mississippi State, they struggled a little bit, almost lost that game. I like Auburn because it is at home.
Yeah, my only thing, like I said, is just Jalen Hurts, I think, is the X factor. If Hurts plays well, I think Alabama's got it. But if Auburn stifles Alabama like they stifled Georgia, I mean, they really shut down that run game. If Bo Scarborough, Damian Harris, and Jalen Hurts can't get going, I think Auburn can definitely win this. They've got enough talent, but I'd rather bet on Nick Saban's team than Gus Malzahn's.
All right, let's move on to Notre Dame and Stanford. Notre Dame almost pretty much out of the playoff race with the big loss to Miami, but fighting to stay in it a little bit as they travel to Stanford this week. Who do you like?
Before I make my pick, any Notre Dame fans watching, I promise I don't hate you guys as much as it acts like I do on camera. I'm taking Stanford, and my reasoning is this. Notre Dame, I'm not sure they have that much to play for. They're pretty much a lock for a New Year's Six bowl. Stanford, not that they have much more to play for, but at least they can kind of try to work their way in. They're not into a big bowl right now. I think Bryce Love, who's averaging an insane amount of yards per carry, I like Bryce Love and the Cardinal. I just don't think Notre Dame's defense can hang with them, and I don't even want to talk about Brandon Wimbush. She has looked bad these last few weeks.
I'm going to go with Notre Dame in this one. I just think they're the better team overall. And you said they have nothing to play for, but I think they have a lot of pride to play for. After the big loss against Miami a couple weeks ago, they have something to prove, something to come out and fight for against Stanford. I think it'll be close, game dominated by both sides on the offensive side, especially by the run with Josh Adams and Bryce Love battling it out. But I like Notre Dame on a close one on the road.
You said that you think because they're playing for pride. If they were playing for pride, you would think you'd see that last week against Navy. They almost lost to Navy. They just barely beat them. That's why after watching the Navy game, I would agree with you if it was last week and this game was happening. I'd say, oh, for sure, Notre Dame, they're coming out upset and ready to prove people wrong. After seeing the poor performance by Brandon Wimbush especially, that's why I don't have any belief in the Fighting Irish.
All right, I see that, but I think Stanford's a little bit bigger of a game that Notre Dame will come out and try to play.
The game's always close, that's for sure. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm taking Stanford 7 at most. I don't know what the spread is, but if it's more than 3 or 4, I'm not touching it.
All right, last game, IU at Purdue for the Old Oaken Bucket. Who do you like?
Well, I think we know your pick by your jacket. I'll go with the Boilermakers. I'm not too confident in the pick, but if you're going to go with IU, I've got to give some love to Jacob Thieneman, second leading tackler with 70 tackles on the season, a Guerin Catholic alum. And I like what Elijah Sindelaire is doing. David Blau going down a few weeks ago and being hurt. Elijah Sindelaire's got to pick it up. DJ Knox is his running back. I think their offense can keep up with IU. The winner gets to go to a bowl game, and I think Purdue is ready to get back in the conversation of being a decent program. I saw a headline this week that said, why is Purdue still a Division I team? Not that I think that's the reason they're going to be playing, but a lot of people have been disrespecting Purdue. I think Purdue's ready to get back in the conversation of being a formidable opponent in the Big Ten.
See, I'm going to go with IU in this one. A little bit of a heart pick, but IU's been playing some good football over the past couple weeks. Richard Legault, after losing his starting job, came back after injury to Peyton Ramsey and has played some good football over the past few weeks. I think IU takes the win at Purdue.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fun game. I know for a lot of people around here, both of our families, both my parents went to Purdue, your dad went to IU, so definitely a family thing going around here at Guerin Catholic. It should be a good one for sure, though, on Saturday. Not sure many people are going to watch it besides in the state of Indiana because you got Michigan and Ohio State going on at the same time, but it should be a good game.
All right, let's move on to some college basketball. It's time for March Madmen. And speaking of IU's been struggling early in college basketball. What do you think about them?
I think it was expected. They're a very young team. You lost Thomas Bryant and OG Anunoby to the draft. They don't really have much right now that have developed. Josh Newkirk, he's a good point guard, not great. Robert Johnson's really their only star on this team, and he's got to carry them if they want to start being at least in the conversation. If you check out our sports sermon last week, I said that I think IU might finish the losing record. Don't get me wrong. I think Archie Miller definitely is a phenomenal coach, and I think he's definitely got a lot of potential to make IU another big guy that you have to worry about in college basketball, but not this year. I'm a big believer in IU in the future, but this year, I think year one's going to be a rough one for Coach Miller and the Hoosiers.
Yeah, you mentioned Josh Newkirk and Robert Johnson, and hearing Robert Johnson and Star in the same sentence makes me cringe a little bit. Josh Newkirk is a turnover machine, and IU's been struggling, especially those two. I think they'll start to turn it around a little bit, but really not enough to make any noise in college basketball this season. And I also agree it's going to take time for IU. Archie Miller got a bunch of new recruits coming in next season.
A lot of 4-stars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, but for now, IU's going to have a rough season trying to adapt to a new coach.
Yeah.
All right, and let's talk about some conference champions now this year. Jason, who is your conference champion first? Let's start off with the SEC.
SEC, there's really only two teams that I think are going to compete for it, Kentucky and Florida. I'm going to go with Florida. Not because I think Florida's the better team, because if you've watched these last few weeks, the inexperience of Kentucky is showing greatly. Their second halves have been horrible. They have not looked like the Kentucky. I think Kentucky has a potential to make a big run in the tournament, but not in the conference tournament, because I think they're going to be focused on the tournament. So I think Florida upsets Kentucky, and so I like Florida as my conference champion in the SEC.
Yeah, really, it's just between those two teams. I'm going to take Kentucky, though. I think by the end of the season, they'll continue to improve. And John Calipari, with his youngest team ever, hard to believe with all the freshmen he brings in every year, but I think he'll have them ready come tournament time and ready to use a big conference tournament to bounce into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, which one's next?
All right, let's go with the ACC. Who's your champion there?
There's a lot of teams to pick from in there. You got Duke, UNC, Notre Dame, Virginia, Miami, Louisville. I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish. Here you go, Notre Dame fans. I think Bonzi Colson is legit. I think he upsets UNC in the championship. Duke, once again, same thing with Kentucky. Not sure they're too worried about the conference tournament and being a conference champion. I like Notre Dame over UNC as the ACC conference champion.
I think it kind of depends on how the bracket lines up, but if Duke does end up playing Notre Dame, I would like Duke in that matchup. I think Duke has just way more size than Notre Dame and would match up better for a victory. I would watch out for UNC if I was Duke, though, but Duke just a team with more talent right now, so I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. Let's move on to the Big Ten. Jason, who do you like there?
I think we all know where I'm going. I'm going the Spartans. Jaren Jackson, Miles Bridges, and underrated Nick Ward as kind of a big three there in East Lansing, along with Cassius Winston, Josh Langford, and a lot of other guys there really helping make a good rotation for the Spartans. I like the Spartans. Depending on how the bracket shakes out, I think the second best team they would face is either Purdue or Wisconsin. Actually, I'm going to change that. I'm going with Minnesota. I think this is their year that this is when they'll make noise. Last year, people were upset that they were a 5 seed, or they 4 or 5, I forget. 5 seed, yeah. I think Minnesota makes some noise this year. Richard Pitino has really brought this program back, and I like what the Golden Gophers are going to do. I think they lose to Michigan State in the Big Ten championship.
All right, changing your pick mid-sentence. I'm going to go with the Spartans, though. Just too much talent for them. I think they match up better against Purdue or Wisconsin or Minnesota, and I think Tom Izzo always getting his teams ready in March, and I think they get the Big Ten championship. Let's move on to the Pac-12, though. Jason, who do you like there?
I want to pick UCLA, but after watching this past week and their loss to Creighton, where they did not look good, I have to go with Arizona. They have got too much talent, and I think Alonzo Trier is legit. He is one heck of a scorer. I have to go with Arizona.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Wildcats. Trier and DeAndre Ayton making noise out there in Arizona, and really a little bit underrated, I think. They're keeping them out of the really top 3 teams that everyone talks about. Duke, Michigan State, Kansas, Kentucky kind of flies in there. But Arizona, a team to watch out for. Yeah,
I said that last week, and I think you're right. Arizona's got a lot of talent. They have Emmanuel Acott, too, someone you didn't mention. But, yeah, a lot of talent that's really loaded there in Arizona. And Sean Miller's doing a great job there.
All right, and last but not least, Big 12. Jason, who's your champion there?
I do not like Big 12 basketball this year. I feel like there's always a team that surprises us. Kansas has got it this year. No upset this year. I'm taking the Jayhawks. Devontae Graham and Malik Newman are forming, if not the best backcourt, the second best backcourt in college basketball.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the Jayhawks. Really not a lot of depth behind them in the Big 12. I think they'll be ready come tournament time.
Someone that gets looked over in Kansas, though, maybe just like Giannis in the NBA due to his hard name, Mekhi Luke from Kansas is an absolute stud. He scores the basketball, and I liked him last year when Josh Jackson was there, as he'd just be there for the 3-and-D guy. Mekhi Luke has really expanded his game, and he's a good little player for the Jayhawks.
All right, let's move on for some more basketball. This time in the NBA, time for Around the Association. We've got a couple questions and then a little game to play at the end.
There we go.
First, will the Knicks make the playoffs? They've started out hot this year. Kristaps Porzingis leading the Knicks, but do you think they keep it up all season?
I'm going to go with no. Kristaps Porzingis is definitely one of the rising stars of this league. but 1 star is not good enough. I know it's the East, but I like teams like the Pacers, who are really gelling with Victor Oladipo, Domantas Sabonis, and some other teams that I think haven't yet hit their groove, like the Brooklyn Nets, who's got a lot of talent just for a lot of money. I think either of those teams will be better at the end of the season. I don't like the Knicks. Ramon Sessions and Frank Ntilikina as the point guard spot. I don't like them enough to get into the playoffs. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good player, but not a good starter. And from there, it's not much else to really mention. So I think it's a few years before the Knicks make the playoffs.
I do like them to sneak into the playoffs this year, actually. I think Kristaps Porzingis is a big enough star in the East. I mean, you look at some of the other East teams that you mentioned, the Pacers and the Nets really don't have as big of a star as Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, the Knicks struggle a little bit with depth and with point guard concerns, but I think Frank Ntilikina gets better as the season goes on and can be a solid starting point guard to at least get them in the playoffs. I'm not saying they make any noise in the playoffs or anything like that.
They're getting swept by the Cavs or the Celtics.
Of course.
Okay.
But I do think they are able to make a run and sneak into the playoffs this year.
I don't think anybody's disagreeing that Porzingis has a better star than any of those other two teams. My thing is that the Pacers and the Nets play more as a team, which I think will produce more wins as the season goes on. Porzingis already gets hurt a decent amount. If he goes down, their season is down the drain, where if D'Angelo Russell, as he's hurt on the Nets right now, the Nets are still able to compete in games. I mean, they're with the Warriors until the last 2 minutes of the game, so that's why I like the Pacers and the Nets to sneak in.
All right. And let's talk about a team that's struggling on the other side of the conference in the West. Let's talk about the Thunder. They've struggled early this season. Mm-hmm. They spent a lot of money this offseason, a couple big trades to bring in Carmelo Anthony and Paul George to play along with Russell Westbrook, but they have struggled to gel so far this season. Jason, are you worried about it?
You know, I am worried about if they're going to make any noise. I'm not worried about the Thunder in general because they have Russell Westbrook locked up. This is what I am worried about. For this season, they are not sharing the ball like they need to be. Carmelo Anthony needs to stop trying to be Carmelo Anthony of the Knicks and needs to start playing like Carmelo Anthony of the USA team. He is the most prolific scorer in USA basketball history for a reason. He knows when he gets to the USA team, he doesn't have to do it all, but he's going to get his shots. That's how the Thunder need to use him. He's trying to do too much right now. Russell Westbrook has these teammates that he's still putting up good numbers, but he's got to utilize his guys more. Andre Roberson, good for a defender. I like him in the starting lineup. Him and Alex Abrinas. Abrinas good for just threes. Roberson good for just defense. Ideally, you could put them together and make a good 3-and-D guy. But, I mean, you've got those two at the 2 guard. Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, and Steven Adams. That is a good enough team for the playoffs. The difference is they're not playing as a team. Similar to what I'm talking about the Knicks, only the Thunder have a reason to. Paul George had not been utilized the first few weeks until this past week when he dropped that crazy number last week. But Paul George not really getting in the mix. The Thunder need to figure it out. I am worried because you've got a lot of ball-dominant players. Paul George played with the ball all the time in Indy. Carmelo Anthony played with the ball all the time in New York. And Russell Westbrook played with the ball all the time in Oklahoma City last year. Right now, they're not gelling. And I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited it's not working out. Every day it goes bad, it's one step closer to Paul George coming to the Lakers.
All right. I don't know if I'd go that far yet. We'll calm down. We'll talk about that come summertime. But I think the Thunder are still a good squad for this year. I think they'll be able to work their way back up into a 3 or 4 seed in the West this year. I'm not high on the Timberwolves or the Spurs, especially as Kawhi is still out for them. I think the Thunder continue to work together, get better as a team, especially those 3 as they play together. And really, they haven't played too bad this season. There's just been some struggles to win close games and finish at the end.
You said you weren't worried about the Spurs, but they're a top 4 seed already without Kawhi Leonard. Doesn't that raise concern for when Kawhi does come back? Unless you think they're going to be worse when Kawhi comes back.
Well, I think it's always going to be a struggle getting him back into the lineup. When will he be healthy? When will he be at 100%, even when he does come back? So I think there's a few questions for the Spurs, and I think the Thunder are able to make a big run in the second half of the season.
I would say the Thunder are no better than a 4 seed. I think the Timberwolves, the Warriors, and the Rockets, and the Spurs, 4 of those teams will secure those first 3 spots. I agree. The Timberwolves, Spurs, and Thunder are interchangeable if the Thunder start playing well, if the Spurs struggle when Kawhi comes back, and the Timberwolves can't gel. Right now, I'm dropping the Thunder at right now. Like if I had to guess, come playoff time, they'd be a 6 seed. I think the Clippers can get right back up there in front of them also, just because they've got enough talent. All their guys are hurt right now. So the way they're looking right now, they're a 6 or 7 seed at best. But I agree, I think the highest they can go is a 4.
All right, now it's time for a little game. How many NBA players can we name in 30 seconds? We'll get out the little timer, and Jason, you can go first.
Alrighty, let me know when to start. 30 seconds, NBA players. Whew.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Lonzo Ball, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Julius Randle, Brooke Lopez, Josh Hart, Kyrie Irving, Al Horford, LeBron James, Isaiah Thomas, Dwayne Wade, D'Angelo Russell, Karis LeVert, Alan Crabb, Timofey Mozgov, Frank Ntilikina, Ron Baker, Kristaps Porzingis, Ramon Sessions, John Wall, Bradley Beal, Marcin Gortat, Markieff Morris, Marcus Morris, Otto Porter Jr., Tim Frazier, Kelly Oubre Jr.
Stop.
All righty.
That's 30 and 30 seconds.
Wow, 1 second. All right, I'll take the timer. Dylan, you ready? In 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jabari Parker, Malcolm Brogdon, Eric Bledsoe, LeBron James, Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Tristan Thompson, Kevin Love, Victor Oladipo, Thad Young, DeMontis Sabonis, Miles Turner, Darren Collison, Blake Griffin, Patrick Beverly, Austin Rivers, Lou Williams, Danilo Gallinari, DeAndre Jordan, Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway Jr., Ramon Sessions, Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, Alex Abrines.
Stop. That was 27. All right, I take the win this time.
Right.
Stay tuned next week as we'll be doing NFL players. Dylan might get me on that one. He knows a lot more obscure NFL players. We'll say that.
All right, speaking of football, it's time to move on to the NFL. So, last weekend, a couple of big games in the NFC. We got the Vikings and the Rams.
Yeah.
They played a good game. The Vikings ended up taking the win, though. Case Keenum with a great performance, and the Vikings defense holding the Rams to 7 points. And the Monday night game, the Falcons and the Seahawks matched up, and the Falcons with Blair Walsh's game-missing field goal.
We've heard
at
that
the
before,
end.
haven't we? Yeah. I think first game we talk about the Vikings and Rams. This is what I said in our Sports Sermon blog that I've mentioned a few times on the show. This is that game. It was the game we expected from the Rams all season long. Struggling offensively, decent on defense, but not great. That's what we expected all season long. It was only a matter of time before we saw it at least once or twice this year. No real cause for concern as if this is the start of a big tank or anything. I still think the Rams, Jared Goff has played phenomenal this year, still an MVP candidate, all that good stuff. No real change there. I think it was somewhat expected eventually, just didn't know it would be this week. On the Vikings side, still playing phenomenal. Latavius Murray having a little comeback after being behind Dalvin Cook. Latavius Murray's playing really well. Talk about the Falcons. Matt Ryan playing well, and the Seahawks. I know they were in it, but like I said, I think their team's about to go downhill fast, losing Cam Chancellor also this week in between the time that we could talk about it. So Seahawks really struggling. Falcons playing well. And one other game you didn't mention, Eagles and Cowboys. I think that was the official end to the Cowboys' playoff hopes. I really don't think they have a way to get back in it. The Eagles with a huge win on Sunday night.
All right, and the hometown Colts didn't play last weekend, but have struggled this season so far. How much better would the Colts be with Andrew Luck this year, Jason?
They would be better, but they would not be much better. What's their record right now?
3-7.
I think they would be 5-5. I just don't see a way that Andrew Luck can bring that many more wins to this team this year with how many holes they have. Their defense is atrocious. If you check our sports sermon, Dylan predicted at the beginning of the season they'd be average. He's wrong about that. Also projected these Jags would be horrible and said they're only good on paper. I was right about that one. Saxonville all the way.
We'll see about that come playoff
Anyway,
time,
so I think they go 5-5, if coming to today, I think at best the Colts would finish 6-10, 7-9 with Andrew Luck. I think they finish 4-12, 5-11 without him. I just don't think this year Andrew Luck can make that much of a difference. In the coming years, I think obviously Andrew Luck's a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett. I just don't think this year Luck would have made that much of a difference.
I think the Colts would have 6 or 7 wins already with
3-5.
Andrew Luck.
You're putting them at. You said 6 or 7 wins. You're putting them 7-3 or 8-2.
Yeah, the Colts have really struggled in the second half, in the fourth quarter especially. And Andrew Luck was always a second half player when he was in there. Of course, the coaching also has to be blamed a little bit because the Colts really haven't made many adjustments in the second half and have given up a lot of first half leads this season. So I think with Andrew Luck and some better coaching, the Colts would be 6-4 or 7-3.
But you can't factor in the better coaching. With just Andrew Luck, I don't see them getting anywhere close to 6-4.
I think at least a couple of games because you remember the Colts even blew a couple of fourth quarter leads when Jacoby Brissett was still getting used to the playbook and everything once he just a couple weeks into his first starts
But you can't make up for the defense.
Quarterback.
The defense has played horrible. Malik Hooker, your best defender, went down. You can't control that.
I mean, those games were before that, though, and the Colts really, before Jacoby Brissett, knew as much as he did now about the Colts playbook, everything like that. A couple of leads were given away, and I think Andrew Luck would have been able to sustain them for the Colts.
What would they finish in the season with Andrew Luck? This team, the way they are, what would they finish?
At least 9 or 10 wins.
No, not happening. No, I just don't see it. The defense has given up play after play. The offense, I get Andrew Luck, but it's not like the running game has really been great. T.Y. Hilton has had on and off games. Dante Moncrief has been absolutely zero this season. I just don't buy it. I think Brissett's doing a phenomenal job as a backup. I think he at least has trade value, if not a solid backup to keep. I just don't buy that Andrew Luck can make them that much better this year. I definitely don't think they get to 9 or 10 wins. I think that's optimistic. I think they go 8-8. I don't remember what I said, but I think 8-8 at best with Andrew Luck just because they have so many other holes, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are just playing such good football. I had to wear the shirt today because we were talking about football and the AFC South. Just had to point out that Dylan thought they'd have a terrible season. I did not. I had them going 10-6. Looks pretty realistic right now.
Yeah, says the guy that says the Rams would not get.
That is
4
true.
wins.
I was very wrong about the Rams. That he is correct about that. We
All
both have our hits and misses.
All right. Speaking of the Rams, we've got some picks this week. The Rams have another big game against the Saints. The Saints have won 8 in a row. Jason, who wins that one?
Those are 2 of my misses. I thought the Saints would be bad. I thought the Rams would be bad. I don't think many people thought the Saints would be good, but I really did not think they'd be even in this division. Now they're very much ahead of it. So I'm going to go with not St. Louis anymore, the Los Angeles Rams. I think they can end this Saints winning streak. I just like their defense to finally somewhat put a stop to Drew Brees and that running game of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. And I think Jared Goff can really just throw all over the place.
I'm going to go with the Saints. I do like the Rams, but I think the Saints' newfound defense, which somehow came out of nowhere this season and started to play some great football, is able to stop Goff enough. And the running back duo, as you mentioned, Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, have been nothing short of fantastic this season.
Yeah.
I think the Saints get a big win on the road.
Wow. All right.
All right, and next game, Seahawks travel to San Francisco to play the 49ers. The Seahawks losing a couple of big studs on defense, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, and lost last week against the Falcons. Who do you like in that matchup?
I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. If it's Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm taking the 49ers. He's now had 2.5 weeks to get ready. I don't like the Seahawks defense anymore. I think they're going to really struggle. I've said this a lot on the show. I like the 49ers at home. Have a little bit to play for, also a little bit to lose for. But I think that the Niners and Jimmy Garoppolo, they want to see what he's made of. I think he shows it this weekend.
You mentioned they have a lot to lose for.
Yeah.
And so I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo plays. I think either way, the Seahawks want to redeem themselves, keep them in the playoff race, although I do think they'll be in the outside looking in when it comes playoff time. I think they get a road win versus the 49ers. All right, and last but not least, we have some Guerin Catholic sports to talk about. First off, boys basketball. Their season got underway last Saturday with a scrimmage at Cathedral. What'd you see in that game, Jason?
I saw one positive and one negative. The positive was the big play of Jack Hansen, Zach Munson, and Drew Thiem. It was my favorite lineup that I saw on Saturday, was those three on the floor. I thought they played really well together and really held their own. My one negative has got to be the guard play. Lots of turnovers. It wasn't anybody, but just a combination of Clay Hepp, Bernie McGinnis, Luke Godfrey, Josh Osborne, Cameron Oswald. Nobody really took control, and nobody had a great game. And if we can cut down the turnovers, I think this team can be special, but it's got to happen fast.
Yeah, of course, Guerin Catholic not fully equipped. Kean Sills had to sit out the scrimmage on Saturday due to a sore neck. And the other side for Cathedral was great at the guard position, especially Armand Franklin. Tough for some of the shorter point guards like Clay Hepp, Josh Osborne, and Cam Oswald out there to guard a 6'4" Armand Franklin for the Irish. But overall, I think the Golden Eagles did play a lot better, especially once they got out of the man-to-man scrimmage. In the scrimmage, they had different quarters where you had to play certain defenses, and the man-to-man really hurt Guerin Catholic. But once they started playing some zone defense, they really started playing some great defense.
Yeah, coming up for Guerin Catholic's boys basketball, 3 games this week. On Tuesday, they kick off the regular season against Heron High School. On Friday, they are home again against the Roncalli Rebels, a good conference game. And then on Saturday, their rival Hamilton Heights come into town. 3 big home games for Guerin Catholic. I think they go 2-1 with splitting Roncalli and Hamilton Heights in a win over Heron.
All right, yeah, and you make sure if you want to check out those games, if you cannot make it, all 3 of those at home at 7:30. But if not, we'll be on the call for every single boys basketball game. GuerinCatholic.faithnetwork.com is your place to go. And we also got some girls basketball. Their season is underway. They have games Thursday at Yorktown and Saturday at Covenant Christian. They'll look to get their first win of the season.
Yeah, I think the 2 people you got to talk about are Sid Geis and Nicole Cunningham. Really been the 2 offensive stars for the team. Sid Geis coming in averaging just under 12 points per game at 11.8, and Nicole Cunningham averaging 7 points per game. Those 2 are going to have to step it up. These are some 2 tough games at Yorktown and Covenant Christian, both just notoriously good. And so I think it's going to be a tough 2 games to try to get their first win, but I like what the ladies are building.
All right. I think that's it for today.
Yep, week 2 done. So everybody have a happy end of this Thanksgiving weekend, and Monday's a new week, and it should be a good one. Lots of Guerin basketball. Also, lots to see what's going to play out tomorrow and Sunday.
Yeah, lots of football happening this weekend. College basketball and NBA still getting underway, and of course, Guerin Catholic basketball coming up very soon for you guys. We'll be on the call for every game, as we mentioned. Make sure you tune in, and thanks for watching Sports Weekly episode number 2.